Okay, fungus. Now, this first slide lets us know just how large fungus can actually get. So we don't typically think of fungi as being that large, but they really are. So, this says that we typically think that, California redwoods or blue whales are very, very large, and certainly they are. But the largest living organism is the honey mushroom. And if you look at its picture, I'm sorry, if you look at its picture right here, this whole light area here is the top of this fungus. It's like a gigantor mushroom. And the scientific name for it is Armorelia ostoyi. It covers more than 1,500 football fields, so you can imagine the size of it. And they think that it's about 2,400 years old. Now, it's protected, so it's safe, but this is a huge fungus, and this just sort of lays the groundwork that these things can get quite large, and they can also be far-reaching. All right, the study of fungus is called mycology. If you are a mycologist, you study fungi, and they are a very specialized group, and they're the only ones that can really tell just by looking some of the species that are poisonous. So if there's ever any doubt about anything being poisonous, only a mycologist can actually give you that information. Now, they're all eukaryotic. There's not going to be any fungi that carry out photosynthesis. They also mostly are multicellular. However, in this group or in this kingdom, we do have our unicellular yeast. So most of them are going to be multicellular, and with yeast being the only unicellular. All right, there's been about 70,000 species of fungus that have been named, but they think there are as many as 1.5 million out there, and the rest of them have not either been discovered or named. A lot of them come out of the rainforest, but because some of them are so obscure, it's hard to locate and name them all. Now, members of the kingdom fungi are going to fall into one of three groups. And here you can see we have a common ancestor, and then our branch comes up, and then it goes to the right and the left. On the left, we have some pretty ancient and very old fungi, and to the right we have the more like the mushrooms, and yeast is on the far right as well. So they're a lot more related here, and we'll talk about why in just a little while, than the two on the left. The chytrids are very, very old, and this is a type of mold. So we have our single-celled yeast. We also have our mold. Now, true mold, by definition, is any fungus that grows on a surface. So we have our molds, and then we have our true fungi. Now, for a very, very long time, scientists put fungi in the plant department, but there are three main reasons they cannot be in the plant department and that they have their own kingdom. First of all, they don't contain chloroplast. If you look at them on a cellular basis, there's no chloroplast, and obviously no chloroplast, no chlorophyll. So they're heterotrophs, they're not autotrophs. Also, in order to be in the plant kingdom, you have to have true roots, stems, and leaves. And fungus do not have true roots, stems, and leaves. They do have something that anchors them to the ground, but it's not a true root. Also, plant cell walls are not made of cellulose. If you remember, cellulose is a starch, and that's the way that plants make up their cell walls. And cellulose was what we couldn't digest. It was actually moved through us as fiber. Well, with fungi, they don't have cellulose as their starch in their cell wall. It's called chitin. And chitin also is a starch, so it's glucose units hooked together, but it's a lot more complex. It's a lot tougher polysaccharide than cellulose is. All right, fungi are going to get their nutrients by absorbing organic molecules from their environment. They are decomposers. They don't take their digestion internally, or they don't take their food internally to digest. So they are extracellular digesters, and the type of nutrition is called absorptive nutrition because they're going to release these enzymes into the environment, and they are going to absorb them back into the body of the fungus. So anytime they're on top of a food source, they're going to digest that food extracellularly and then bring it in through the cell wall. Now, saprophytic fungi. Saprophytic is a type of decomposer, and what they're doing is they break down only dead and decaying material. So some of these fungi, especially our parasitic fungi, they're not breaking down dead and decaying material because if they're living on you, that, what they're eating off of is not dead. But we do have saprophytic fungi, very, very, very important decomposers in the environment. And as you can see here, this is called a bracket fungus. It's a very, very, very large type of Basidiomycota, which is a mushroom, and it is breaking down these organic materials. Now, the organic materials that they're breaking down are going to be like carbon and nitrogen, and they put these back into the food web so that plants can take up the nitrogen and they can, they can grow. So they're very, very important decomposers for recycling nutrients. All right, parasitic fungi absorb nutrients from living cells of other organisms. Now, this is also true. These would be the ones that are not saprophytic. There are some parasitic fungi that produce some specialized hyphae. Now, I'm going to show you what a hyphae looks like in just a minute, but a hyphae is a long, slender filament that makes up the body of the fungus. And some of these long filaments can actually grow into a host tissue. That type of hyphae is called a hostorium or hostoria. And they grow into the tissue and they absorb the nutrients. An example of that is erythrobotrytis. The parasitic, usually they're very parasitic to plants, but if they form a hostoria, the hostoria is a type of hyphae that can penetrate living organisms to break down their the food and absorb back the nutrients.